You've been told to be good, to be kind, generous, selfless, but here's the truth you were never taught. Goodness can rot. It can become control. It can become cowardice. It can become a mask for rage, pride, or shame. And some of the most good people in the world are quietly destroying themselves. They're burned out. They're bitter. They're afraid of their own truth. Why? Because they turned goodness into performance and performance into identity. Carl Jung saw this clearly. When you are too afraid to be bad, you are no longer free. You think you're being kind, but you're really just afraid of being disliked. You think you're being humble, but you're terrified of your own power. You think you're being selfless, but deep down, you hope that giving will earn you love. That's not virtue, that's fear, dressed up in moral language. And that kind of goodness, it costs you everything. Because it's not rooted in truth, it's rooted in survival. You shapeshift, you accommodate, you silence yourself for the comfort of others, and then call it compassion, but it's not. It's self-abandonment. You give, you fix, you heal. But why? Because it's the right thing to do? Or because you can't tolerate someone else's pain? Because helping gives you purpose? Or because it lets you avoid your own wounds? Jung believed that even our noblest qualities have a shadow, and for the helper, that shadow is control. You become addicted to being needed. You use other people's problems to distract from your own. You start to believe you know what's best for everyone. And under the surface, there's resentment, there's judgment, there's a silent cry. Why won't anyone take care of me? You've become the caretaker of everyone's life, except your own. You hold yourself to impossible standards. You apologize when you haven't done anything wrong. You're harder on yourself than anyone else ever was, and you call that integrity, but it's not. It's punishment. It's the voice of an old wound that says, if I'm perfect, I'll finally be safe. But safe from what? From rejection? From guilt? From being seen as human? Jung warned us, the desire to be morally pure often hides a deep spiritual insecurity. You're not trying to be good, you're trying to be untouchable, but that armor, it's making you disappear. You forgive too fast. You explain away bad behavior. You say, they're just wounded, and let it slide. But compassion without boundaries is not love. It's codependence. You're not helping them grow. You're shielding them from consequences. And here's the painful truth. If your goodness requires you to tolerate harm, it's not goodness. It's fear of confrontation. You can love someone and still say no. You can understand someone and still walk away. In fact, sometimes the kindest thing you can do is to stop protecting people from the mirror. You've built your identity around being good, reliable, nice, thoughtful, the better person. But that label becomes a prison, because now you can't be messy, you can't be angry, you can't admit when you're tired, resentful, or just done. You have to keep performing goodness or risk being called selfish. But underneath it, there's pride, a belief that being good makes you superior. Jung saw this clearly. Knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darkness of other people. But if you can't own your own darkness, you'll secretly judge everyone else's. But what happens when the good person finally snaps? When years of swallowed truth and quiet resentment explode? In the next part, we'll reveal the most dangerous transformation of all. How unintegrated goodness can become cruelty, manipulation, and silent self-destruction. You've kept it inside for years, the little jabs, the moments you were dismissed, the times you said yes when every cell in your body was screaming no. You smiled, you nodded, you were good, until one day you couldn't anymore. That explosion, that breakdown, that wasn't out of nowhere. It was the result of emotional constipation, too much peacekeeping, not enough truth. And Jung would say, the anger didn't ruin you, the silence did. Because when you refuse to acknowledge your own fury, it doesn't disappear, it festers, it leaks. It finds ways to punish, with coldness, with distance, with guilt trips dressed as kindness. Unfelt anger doesn't make you a saint, it makes you dangerous to yourself and everyone around you. Do you think manipulation comes from malicious people? The truth is, often it comes from the overly nice. Because if you can't express what you want, you start playing emotional chess. You do things for people, but secretly expect a return. You say you're fine, but hope they'll read your mind. You suppress your needs and resent them when they don't guess right. That's not kindness. That's emotional warfare in soft packaging. Carl Jung called this the return of the repressed, which you won't say clearly will find its way out in shadows, sarcasm, withdrawal, or guilt. And worst of all, you still believe you're the better person. Here's the paradox. The more you perform goodness, the harder it is for anyone to really love you. Because they are not loving you. They're loving the mask, the agreeable mask, the safe mask, the always smiling, always okay, always sacrificing mask. But behind it, you feel unknown, unseen, unloved, even when you're surrounded by people. And that's the tragedy. You've given the world your best behavior, but not your real self. Jung warned us, until we integrate the full spectrum of our being, we will be forever lonely, even in connection. Here's a hard truth. Some of the worst behavior in others is enabled by the silence of the good. You cover for them. You explain it away. You become the emotional sponge for everyone's toxicity. And what happens? They get worse, and you get smaller. This isn't just a personal issue. It's generational. It's systemic. History is filled with atrocities made possible not by evil leaders, but by obedient citizens too afraid to rock the boat, too eager to be good. So ask yourself, is your goodness healing the world or helping someone else avoid their reckoning? You think you're kind, but you've disappeared. No opinions, no boundaries, no clear desires. You've made yourself so palatable that you've become invisible. People say you're easy to be around, but no one truly feels you. And deep down, you know it. You walk away from conversations feeling empty. You give all day, then collapse into exhaustion. You wonder why no one checks in on you. Here's why. You train the world to treat you as if you don't exist. And the most haunting part? You believe that made you lovable. So how do you stop this? How do you escape the cage of fake goodness without swinging to bitterness or cruelty? As a next step of our journey, we dive into the rebirth, how Jung's path of integration leads to something stronger than good, wholeness. You were taught to be good, to smile, behave, obey. And maybe that saved you once. Maybe it kept you from rejection. Maybe it got you love, or something that looked like it. But now, it's suffocating you. Because goodness is a costume, a role, an identity you picked up to survive a world that punished your truth. Jung called this your persona, the mask you wear to be accepted. But here's the thing about masks. They always come at the cost of the soul. You don't need to abandon goodness, but you need to outgrow it, because goodness is something you do, but wholeness is something you are. Most people live in spiritual extremes. Either they repress their darkness or they become consumed by it. But Jung offered a third path, integration. Not purity, not perfection, but wholeness. To say, I can be angry without being abusive. I can be selfish without being cruel. I can say no and still be loving. This is the path of the individuated self, not split between saint and sinner, but united. That kind of self, it doesn't have to try to be good, it just is. Not out of guilt, not out of fear, but out of truth. You say you want deep love, you say you want to be truly seen, but here's the catch. No one can love the parts of you that you're still hiding. If you're ashamed of your anger, you'll flinch when someone loves you in your rage. If you've buried your sexuality, you'll question the one who's attracted to your depth. If you think your ambition is too much, you'll sabotage anyone who celebrates your fire. Jung said, the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. But it's also the only way to ever feel truly loved, not for your role, not for your mask, but for you. The world loves good people until you stop giving, until you say no, until you set a boundary, until you choose rest over service. And suddenly, you're the villain. The same people who praised your kindness, now they call you difficult. The same ones who leaned on your empathy, now they say you've changed. And they're right, you have changed. Because you've realized being used is not the same as being loved. Let's be clear, kindness is beautiful, compassion is noble, but without power, it's a trap. Because a powerless person who's kind will attract people who take. A powerless person who's forgiving will attract people who harm. Jung never wanted us to be nice. He wanted us to be whole. And a whole person is dangerous. They can love you, but they don't need you. They can forgive you, but they'll walk away. They don't need to be seen as good because they're too busy being real. But what does it actually look like to live as a whole person? Not theoretically, not spiritually, but practically. The first shift, you stop lying. Not big lies, not malicious ones, but the quiet lies. The "I'm fine," the "it's no big deal," the "whatever you need." The lies that made you liked and made you hollow. When you stop performing goodness, you give birth to honesty. And honesty sounds like, "I don't agree. I need space. I can't give that right now." At first, it feels wrong, but it's not wrong. It's real. And realness is what heals. Good people are taught that saying no is selfish, that protecting your time or energy is unkind. But that's a lie sold by takers. Boundaries are not punishments, they are declarations. They say, "This is where I end, and you begin. This is what I will allow into my peace. This is what I value, including myself." And here's the paradox. When you start setting boundaries, you don't become colder, you become warmer, because now your yes actually means something. You're not being pulled by obligation, you're choosing. And choice is love's clearest language. One of the biggest lies of goodness is this: if everyone likes me, I'm safe. But Jung would say, that's the ego talking. The shadow wants to be adored because it hasn't been accepted. So here's the next evolution. You let people dislike you. You say the hard thing. You hold your line. You disappoint them, and you survive. And in that space, you discover a freedom no praise can buy. Because now your worth is not tied to someone else's approval. It's anchored in your own self-respect. And that kind of self is unstoppable. When you're always trying to be good, you're constantly trying to control how people see you. You walk on eggshells, you anticipate needs, you manage impressions, but that's not connection. That's fear with makeup on. When you let go of performance, you step into presence. You're not trying to be good. You're just being here, which means you're actually listening. You're telling the truth. You're risking being seen. That's messy, but it's real. And realness is the only bridge to intimacy that ever lasts. Yes, selfishness, not the kind that harms, but the kind that heals. The kind that says, I matter too. My needs are not negotiable. I won't abandon myself to keep the peace. This is not ego. This is soul. Jung believed that only by honoring the self can we bring anything of value to others. Because when you betray yourself in the name of goodness, you don't become holy, you become hollow. And the world doesn't need more martyrs. It needs more people who've made peace with their own fire. But this final transformation, it isn't just about boundaries or bravery. It's about reclaiming the deepest part of your humanity. If you've made it this far, you're ready to face the ultimate question Jung left us with. What happens when you stop being good and start being whole? The old you needed to be good, to feel worthy, to feel in control, to avoid shame. But the real you, the whole you, doesn't need to be good. It needs to be real. And realness isn't tidy. It says no. It asks for what it wants. It leaves situations that once felt sacred, and it no longer needs anyone's permission. This is what Jung meant when he said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Not who you were trained to be, not who they applauded, but the untamed, holy contradiction of your soul. There's something terrifying about someone who no longer needs approval. They don't flinch when you're angry. They don't fold when you're disappointed. They don't shrink to make you comfortable. They tell the truth. They hold the line. They walk away when they must. They are not unkind, but they are untouchable. That's you now. You don't use goodness as a shield. You've become so intimate with your own darkness that no one can use it against you. You don't offer kindness to control. You offer it because it's real. And when it's no longer returned, you don't panic. You move on. That's power. Not the power to dominate, but the power to remain yourself. Being the good one meant applause, validation, approval. But it also meant you were always performing. You filtered every response. You bent every boundary. You buried every truth. You weren't living. You were presenting. But now Now you walk off the stage, you take off the costume, you burn the script they gave you, and you live fully, unapologetically, not perfect, not pure, but finally free. The world is not starving for more politeness, it's starving for wholeness, for people who speak truth without cruelty, who love without losing themselves, who forgive without pretending it didn't hurt. That's you now. You don't need to be seen as good. You're far too busy being real. And in a world full of pretenders, that is the most powerful rebellion there is. Jung's final lesson wasn't to help you be better. It was to help you be whole. And in that wholeness, nothing can own you. Nothing can shame you. Nothing can turn your light down, because you're not chasing light anymore. You are it. Now I want to ask you something real. What's one way you've sacrificed your truth just to be seen as good? Drop it in the comments. Let this be the moment you reclaim your voice. And if this video hit deep, if it sparked clarity or helped you take back a piece of yourself, click the like button. It helps this reach more people who need it. And if you're walking this path of truth, shadow, and wholeness, join our community, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss another bold, soul-cutting insight. Until next time, keep shining, not to be seen, but to see.